Yes, yeah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. The NFL Week 9 is officially here, and I have a ton of great picks to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. We have a ton, and I mean a ton of great content here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel across NFL, college football, NBA. So much great stuff, guys. And the best part is every pick we hand out here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel is 100% free. So please, if you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. All right, guys, with a new week of NFL football comes new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. I have a lot, and I mean a lot of picks to go ahead and share with you guys in this week's slate. But first, before we dive into this week's NFL picks video, a quick little recap of how we did last week. And guys, overall, another solid week for us here on the NFL Oracle. We've been on a pretty good run lately. On our single bets last week, I handed out 14 picks in our single bets category. We went 8-6 in those 14 single bets. We're now 43, 33, and 3 overall this NFL season on our single bets category. We went 1-2 on parlays last week, but we did cash on a plus 515 parlay last week, so a really nice hit there. We're just 4-10 overall this year on parlays, but again, parlay records, they're not going to look as clean. We've hit a plus 1100 parlay. We've hit a plus 500 parlay. We've hit some really nice parlays in those 4 wins. Big enough hits that despite those 10 parlay losses, we're still profitable in our parlay section so far this year. And we went 1-2 on our teaser section last week. We're now 9-9 overall this year on our NFL teasers. And the thing is, most of our teasers here on the channel are mostly plus money. We do have a couple minus ones, like minus 140, minus 120 teasers. But for the most part, all of our teasers are plus money plays. So pretty good hits there as well. Like I said, guys, overall, we have been on a pretty solid run of late. Let's see if we can't continue that good run into this week's NFL slate. Guys, no more time to waste. Tons of NFL picks to get to. Let's dive into our Week 9 NFL picks. All right, guys, jumping right into the outlier screen. Our first game we're looking at in this Week 9 NFL slate, we're targeting the Washington Commanders New York Giants game, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Our first pick overall on this week's slate, we're going with the Commanders here, -3. This one is a little bit juiced here, -138 on DraftKings, also available on BetMGM, Bet365, and ESPN Bet for varying odds. As always, guys, please make sure to go ahead and shop around for the best sportsbook odds available across multiple sportsbook. It can sometimes win you a lot more money that way. I got to be honest, guys. I don't really understand why this spread is where it's at. Now, obviously, this is a little bit more juice. The higher line is like Commanders -4, -3.5. We're sacrificing a little bit of value here in order to get a little bit of a better line. I think -3.5 and -4, those are always risky lines to go ahead and take in any sport, really. I like the Commanders a lot more at the -3 line. And even then, I still think the Commanders should be favored by a lot more than even 4 points, honestly. Look, hand up, I bet against the Commanders a lot this year, and I wish that I had. I'm all in on this team now. It took a little bit of time to convince me. That win against the Bears was definitely a lucky win, but overall, this is a good Commanders team. You really can't deny that at this point. Are they great on the defensive side of the football? No, they're not. But offensively, this team is a dynamo. I mean, Jaden Daniels is unbelievable. Definitely going to win Rookie of the Year, I think. I just don't really see how the New York Giants are going to go ahead and stick around in this game. The Commanders already played this Giants team once earlier this year. Now, that game did end in a pretty close one, 21-18. And some would say if the Giants had actually signed a kicker in that matchup, maybe New York would have won that game. I do think it's worth noting, though, the Giants back in Week 2 and the Giants now are two very different teams. The Giants are currently sitting at 2-6, and it just kind of feels like their season is already over and it's just done. Especially with the current state of the NFC, it would take a miracle for New York to go ahead and make the playoffs. It just kind of feels like they're packing up for the season. This team's flawed. Daniel Jones, this is probably going to be his last year. You just got the feeling around that team that this is just a dead team on arrival. I just think the Commanders should go ahead and rinse them in this matchup. And by the way, for as much crap as people give the Commanders defense, obviously the DVOA rankings and all that stuff kind of come to play a factor here. The Commanders actually have a top 10 scoring defense in the NFL right now, giving 20.9 points per game. Matching against the Giants offense, it's the second worst scoring offense in the National Football League. They're scoring just 14.6 points per game. I don't see that really much improving. Yeah, Tyrone Tracy is emerging as a nice little running back option. Malik Neighbors, obviously, maybe the lone bright spot in the Giants season thus far. They have a couple of nice pieces on the offensive side of the football, but this Giants defense, although the defensive line is solid, overall, they're a mediocre defense in general. And offensively, they're just so bad offensively, they can't overcome it. Plain and simple, I think Washington is the clearly better team in this matchup. They already beat the Giants by the score of -3 once this season. I think the Commanders are a better team than they were now back and then in week 2. I think you've seen the improvement. Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback now than he was back in week 2. This defense is better now than it was back in week 2. The Commanders are a complete and legitimate playoff team and a really solid playoff team. I don't want to put the contender title on them yet, but Washington is a very, very solid team. A fun story from this year for sure. I just don't understand how the New York Giants, yeah, they're at home, but the Giants at home doesn't really mean much. Their home record's not really fantastic. The Commanders are far and away the better team here. I'm just so sold on this Giants team. I've bet on them a couple times in the last couple weeks, hoping they would go ahead and turn the corner. But look here, they failed to cover the spread in each of their last 3 games. Really bad losses there as well in each of those matchups. They've only covered the spread in 3 of their 8 games this year. And on this +3 line, just a 25% hit rate this season. So the Giants really not looking great this year. I'm going to go ahead and rock with the Commanders here, -3. All right, guys, next game we're going to go and take a look at here is the Bengals versus the Raiders in Cincinnati, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I actually have 2 picks coming from this game. Our first pick, though, we're going with the Bengals on the spread here, -6.5 points. Similar to what I just said with the New York Giants in the previous pick here, the Raiders are a team that just feel dead to me. They already started selling off some pieces. Devontae Adams, obviously, is a New York Jet now. I would not be surprised if the Raiders sell a couple more players before the NFL trade deadline. They're not very good defensively. They're not very good offensively. This Raiders team does not have a lot going for it. The best thing they could possibly do now is honestly just tank and hope you can get a top 5 pick and maybe find your quarterback of the future or another piece of the future. Now, the Bengals are not much better. The Bengals are now 3-5 this year. Their defense, obviously, is not very good. The Bengals, the 23rd scoring defense in the NFL right now, 21st in defense in terms of passing yards allowed per game, 24th in rushing yards allowed per game. Really not good. It's just not a good defense in general. And that defense, plus some inconsistency on the offensive side of the football, has cost the Bengals dearly this year. But in this matchup, and the Bengals, unlike the Raiders, I think the Bengals still have a shot to at least make the playoffs, maybe the 7th seed in the AFC. They still have the star power. They still have Joe Burrow. They've got the quarterback. They've got receivers. They've got some playmakers on defense. This team still has the potential to turn things around. It's getting to be late, though. They're running out of time here. They can't afford many more losses like the one they had last week versus the Eagles. Every game is becoming a must-win game for the Bengals, but this game in particular, playing a 2-6 Raiders team, is so important for the Bengals to go ahead and grab a win. I think the Bengals absolutely win this game. This offense, when it gets going, and of course, at the time of recording, we don't know if T. Higgins is 100% going to play. When T. Higgins plays, this team is a much different team, a much better team. I can't say for sure he's going to play at the time of recording. He is questionable. But truth be told, even if he doesn't play, this Bengals team is still good enough to beat up on this Raiders team. Overall, the Raiders have the 27th ranked scoring defense in the NFL, giving up 26.2 points per game in the season. They are 19th in rushing yards allowed, 7th in passing yards allowed. But this pass rush, despite having Max Crosby, is basically non-existent, tied for 23rd in sacks, 22nd in QB hits, tied for 24th in QB hurries. They're tied for 30th in takeaways. They don't force turnovers. And like I said, on the offensive side, to flip things over, the Raiders offense, they can't run the football, and their passing attack is just wildly inconsistent. You got Gardner, who's playing quarterback? Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell. It's always flip-flopped. Whoever's playing, though, it usually doesn't go over very well. The Raiders are covering this +6.5 point spread in just 38% of the games this year. I just don't like the spot here on the road in Cincinnati. Must-win game for the Bengals. I think Cincinnati absolutely rolls here and beats up on it. I'm going to say as nicely as I possibly can for Raiders fans. I apologize. This simply pathetic Raiders team. I just think Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense will take care of business, so much so that for my 3rd pick overall in this week's slate and my 2nd pick from this Bengals-Raiders game, I'm going with the Bengals team total here over 26.5 points. Now, it's available for -125 here on DraftKings, and truth be told, the data is not fantastic. You see, so far this year, just a 38% hit rate on this team total over for the Bengals. 3 out of 8 games here that cash the over. They're averaging 24.38 points per game this season, which is a top 10 scoring offense in the NFL right now, actually. But they've kind of been all over the place with their scoring, very inconsistent. They had a couple of really big games there versus Washington, versus the Panthers, versus the Ravens. But I think the key thing to take away from those games are those are pretty weak defenses, specifically in terms of passing. Now, Baltimore's run defense is actually pretty solid, but their pass defense obviously is atrocious. But you see, when they play these weaker defenses, they've had a lot of success. I mean, look at some of these games they scored lower. New England, back in week 1 when New England was healthier on defense, that was a solid defensive team. They played the Chiefs, really solid defense, top 10 defense in the NFL. Giants, solid defense. Browns, solid defense. When they played some of these tougher defenses, you've seen the offense struggle a little bit more. Now, the Eagles game was just a mix of just, it was a shitstorm. It was bad. But overall, you've seen when they played off some of these better defenses, they've struggled. When they play these weaker defenses, they have a field day. 33 versus Washington, 34 versus Carolina, 38 versus Baltimore. Again, although some of the Raiders' numbers don't look terrible, overall, they're the 27th ranked scoring defense in the NFL. Bottom 5 defense in the NFL in terms of scoring, giving up 26.2 points per game. And if you look at the Raiders here, they've given up some high-scoring games. 27 a cash versus the Chiefs, 32 cash versus the Steelers, 34 cash versus Denver, 36 cash versus the Panthers. Even when they miss, like in that Baltimore game, they gave up 23 points, they're still giving up a lot of points. So this Raiders defense, they give up a ton of points here. They've actually cashed that over for opposing teams at a pretty decent rate this year. If Bo Nix and the Broncos can score 34 points on this Raiders defense, I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals should be able to at least get 27. I like the spot here for the Bengals and the team total over 26.5 points. All right, guys, next up, we're targeting the Browns-Chargers game, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Admittedly speaking, I'm not touching the spread here because this game could go in a lot of different directions. This isn't the Deshaun Watson era anymore, baby. This is the Jameis Winston era. And with Jameis Winston at quarterback, anything could happen. The Browns could win by 30. They could lose by 40. Anything could happen when Jameis Winston's at quarterback. He's the most fun quarterback, in my opinion, to watch in the NFL because it's always a roller coaster when he plays. But keeping that in mind, I really don't know what to do with this Chargers team and this Browns team. Really, a lot of unknowns with both of them. So what I'm going to go ahead and ride here with is the under at 43.5. It's the smart play, it's a safe play, and it's actually a pretty good play overall in this matchup. These are two teams that are covering this under of 43.5 in a lot of their games. For the Chargers, literally every single game this year, they've cashed this under of 43.5 points. They've been an under machine this year. Again, it's 100% at the line of 43.5. Overall, looking at the general line, they've cashed the under in every game except for that Broncos game where they just slightly cashed the over in that one. But this team has been an under cashing machine all year long. They have an offense that struggles to score points at times and a defense that doesn't allow other teams to score points. Look at the insights provided by Outlier. The Chargers, the under has hit in 12 of the Chargers' last 13 games as a favorite. And to go ahead and show you that insight here, go ahead and take a look at that. These are the Chargers' last 13 games as a favorite. The under has cashed pretty consistently. And at this 42.5, 43.5 line, you see it's cashed at a pretty high number as well. I mean, even looking at the Browns side of things, this under of 43.5 has cashed in 63% of the Browns games so far this season. They've been an undercovering machine as well. Like I said, these are two solid defensive teams, not so hot offensive teams. The Chargers, the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. However, just the 24th scoring offense in the NFL. Now, the Browns defense is 18th in scoring defense. I do think the numbers don't do the defense justice. I think part of that is their offense was so bad with Deshaun Watson that the defense had to have so many extra possessions on the field. I do think this Browns defense is still elite overall, though they do have a couple injuries to keep in mind here. This is still, I think, overall a solid defense. And the Browns offense, we know overall this year, 27th in scoring. That's the Deshaun Watson Browns, though. They scored 29 points in their first start with Jameis, but that was the Ravens secondary, so let's keep that all in mind. I just think these are two really solid defensive teams with some offenses that are real wild cards. When those two kind of teams collide, the best bet is to go ahead and take the under here at 43.5 points. All right, guys, next up we're moving on to the Falcons-Cowboys game. It's still 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I actually have 2 picks coming from this game here. Our first pick, though, we're going with the spread pick here. Falcons -2.5 against the Dallas Cowboys. Again, a little juice here, -137 on DraftKings, -138 on FanDuel. Also available on multiple sportsbooks for varying odds. It kind of reminds me of the Commanders-Giants pick where it's like I just don't see how I'm supposed to bet Dallas. Now, to be fair, the Cowboys are expected to get a couple of their defensive guys back, in particular Micah Parsons. But this Cowboys team has so many problems beyond just missing a few guys on defense. I think this Cowboys team is just fundamentally flawed. Match up with an Atlanta team here that's overall pretty solid. Now, have they laid some stinkers? Absolutely. That loss to Seattle a couple weeks ago, really embarrassing. But overall, to me, the Falcons are a team that are trending in the right direction. They covered the spread of -2.5 in 3 of their last 4 games. Again, the Seattle game being the one outlier there. And on the Dallas side of things, they failed to cash this line of +2.5 in 4 of their last 6 games, with the Steelers and Giants game being the only exceptions there. And against the spread overall, again, we're talking about the +2.5 line, but against the spread in general this year, the Dallas Cowboys has a 17% hit rate against the spread this season. It's really, really bad. This Cowboys team is abysmal. I just think Atlanta, their offense in particular, Kirk Cousins in particular, are really starting to hit their stride. They're really starting to get comfortable in this offense. Even guys like Kyle Pitts are finally starting to arrive on a consistent basis. Even with the return of Micah Parsons, maybe a couple of those guys on the Cowboys defense, I don't think it's going to be enough to single-handedly sway the game because this Cowboys offense is also just genuinely not good. Outside of CeeDee Lamb and maybe Jake Ferguson, this Cowboys offense is just it's just not great. 22nd in scoring right now in the NFL. Although the Falcons defense isn't great, I just think Atlanta's offense is too good against the Cowboys defense. And even if they get Micah Parsons and a couple guys back, they're just not that good. I think Atlanta's going to be able to throw over the Cowboys defense and have a little bit of a field day here playing Dallas. The 49ers last week scored 30 points. They had their entire offense decimated with injuries. And they still scored 30 points without Brandon Ayuk, without McCaffrey, with Kittle banged up, with Debo battling illness, and the offensive line banged up, and all these things. And yeah, Micah Parsons will definitely help that. But I think Atlanta's offense right now is more healthy. They have a better offense in general right now than San Francisco does. I think the Falcons should have a field day throwing on this team, scoring on this team. Give me the Falcons here -2.5. I just don't trust this Cowboys team at all right now. And piggybacking off of that, my second pick from this game, we're going Falcons team total here over 26.5 points. Again, back with that 26.5 point team total line. You're going to see it a couple times in today's video. I just think Atlanta's going to have a field day scoring on this Cowboys defense. And again, like we said, over the last 4 weeks or so, Atlanta has started to hit their stride, except that Seattle game, which is the one game where they just kind of laid an egg. Overall, this Falcons team has been scoring at a much higher rate. You see 3 of their last 4 games, they went ahead and cashed this over. They're averaging 24.25 points per game this season, which is 12th in the NFL right now. This is the 6th best team in the NFL in terms of passing yards, averaging 251 passing yards per game this season. The Cowboys right now defensively are 20th in passing yards allowed, and they're 31st, tied for 31st against the run, while the Falcons are 15th in rushing yards per game. And this Falcons run attack between Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson should be able to have a field day here. I think Atlanta absolutely rolls. The Cowboys have been getting up a ton of points in their games recently. Just look at some of Dallas's recent results, right? 30 points to the Niners, 47 points to Detroit. Those last 2 games really tough. They gave up 17 points to the Steelers, but that's the Steelers offense. 15 points to the Giants. So a couple weeks there where they actually held the team under 20 points, but it's the Steelers offense and the Giants offense. Let's keep that into consideration. But then 28 points to Baltimore, 44 points to the Saints, and even 17 points to Cleveland. Overall, this Cowboys team is giving up a ton of points. I think Atlanta scoring 27 points is very realistic in this matchup here. Give me the Falcons team total over 26.5 points, as well as the Falcons spread -2.5. And guys, real quick before we carry on with the rest of today's picks, a quick little word from our partners over at DraftKings. That's right, guys. DraftKings Sportsbooks and Guy Boston Sports have officially partnered to bring you guys this very special offer. As a new customer, use the link down below in the description, bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. It's as easy and as simple as that, guys. If you're a new customer, just bet $5, and you don't have to win or anything. You just instantly get $200 in bonus bets. That's a lot of free money to go ahead and further build your bankroll. And obviously, we're in the full swing of NFL season, college football, the NBA's back, NHL's back. There's so many sports to go ahead and bet on right now. Those free bonus bets are going to come in handy. So don't miss out on this very special offer in the link in the description down below. Again, as a new customer, bet $5, get $200 instantly in bonus bets thanks to DraftKings. Special thank you to DraftKings for partnering with us for today's video. And as always, guys, please make sure to go ahead and gamble responsibly. Now, let's get back to today's picks. All right, guys, next up we got Broncos-Ravens, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Our first of 2 picks from this game. Now, I'm not touching the overall spread or the total or anything because the lines for this game are really weird. At the time of recording, the Ravens are 9.5 point favorites, and I don't really understand it. They just lost to the Browns. Another one against the Broncos defense. It's been one of the best defenses in the NFL. However, Denver obviously has played a little bit of a cupcake schedule, so it's just a weird line. I don't want to touch that, so I'm taking a couple of different things in this game. Going against the societal norms here, our first pick from this game, we're going Broncos team total under 18.5 points. This pick is -110 on FanDuel, -110 on DraftKings. And the data at first glance is not fantastic. They've actually only cashed this under in 3 of 8 games this year, a 38% hit rate. But like I just mentioned with Denver, they've had a very, very, very easy schedule, a cupcake schedule, if you will. You look at the games where they cashed the over, you got Seattle, who defensively have been wishy-washy this year. Tampa Bay, their secondary is an absolute disaster. The Raiders, we've already talked about it earlier in today's video, not a good defensive team. The Saints, who are an absolute mess all around right now. And the Panthers, who are, I think, the worst team in the NFL right now. So in these games where they've gone ahead and cashed those overs are against teams that either defensively are not good or overall are just not good teams. And yes, the Baltimore Ravens secondary, I talked about it in this week's video and last week's video and the last few weeks' videos. Their secondary is not a bit of a mess. It's an absolute mess. However, the Broncos are not really the team to go ahead and take advantage of that matchup. Look at Denver this year, just 27th in passing yards per game at 185.9 passing yards per game, and that's with the cupcake schedule. So yeah, Baltimore is right now 32nd in the NFL in passing yards allowed, giving up 291 passing yards per game. But Denver, A, doesn't really have the receivers to take advantage of that. And B, Bo Nix, as much as I've been impressed by him this year, he's really not putting up that great numbers. The Ravens also have the best run defense in the NFL, and that's kind of been the one area where Denver's been pretty solid offensively. They're 14th in the NFL right now in rushing yards, and this is the best run defense in the NFL. I just think it's a rough spot for Denver, a team that is averaging 21.63 points per game this season, which is 20th in scoring. So their average is just a little bit higher of what this line is. I think that Baltimore should absolutely be able to hold the Broncos to under 19 points in this one, or under 19 points. I just don't think Denver is offensively equipped to go ahead and take advantage, of the weaknesses within Baltimore's defense. Baltimore should also be able to hold on to the ball a little bit more than other teams have. This offense, although Denver's defense, we know it's fantastic, they haven't faced an offense quite like Baltimore's. I think the Ravens should be able to keep the ball a little bit longer, have some longer possessions, some longer drives, which will always take some possessions away and some time away from the Broncos offense. I just don't see Denver scoring many points in this one. And my second pick in this game, guys, is the Ravens first half spread minus 5.5 points. I hate the overall line of minus 9.5. I just think it's way too risky for Baltimore. The way they play in the fourth quarter, the second half collapses they have, way too dangerous here, especially with a coach like Sean Payton, who makes great second half adjustments in these games. I like Baltimore, though, to come out here early and often and score and take advantage and build a nice lead on Denver early and hopefully hold on to that lead. Baltimore, a little extra motivation. Obviously, they got beat last week by the Browns. The Broncos are riding high. I think Baltimore can come into this game in the first half. And again, it's minus 5.5, so a touchdown, winning by 6 or 7 points will cover the spread here. Baltimore has actually cashed this first half line of minus 5.5 in 50% of their games this season. And rarely are they ever trailing. Only in 2 games so far this year has Baltimore trailed at halftime. You got the Chiefs game back in week 1. They were down 13-10 at half. And then you also have the Bengals game where they were down 17-14 at halftime. Those are the only 2 times this year they've trailed the Bengals and the Chiefs, obviously, 2 really high-powered teams, really high-powered offenses. Besides that, the only other couple of misses they had, they were still leading, but just they didn't cover the spread. 3-point lead versus the Raiders and a 4-point lead last week versus the Browns. And although Denver has covered this plus 5.5 first half line in 63% of their games, again, we look at some of the teams they've covered against. They covered against the Panthers, the Saints, the Raiders, the Bucs. But again, you look at the team they didn't cover, the Chargers, the Jets. And I know the Jets aren't a great team, but they obviously are they have a lot of playmakers on both sides of the ball, and the Steelers. So again, in some of those tougher contests, you see Denver 10-0 at halftime to the Steelers, 6-0 at halftime to the Jets, 20-0 at halftime to the Chargers. I think we could see something similar to that in this game with Baltimore maybe leading like 10-3 or 13-3 or 13-6, something in that ballpark in the first half. I think Baltimore will come out here and hit early, and if they're going to collapse, it'll probably be in the second half. So give me the Ravens here, first half spread, minus 5.5 points. All right, guys, next up, I love this 1 p.m. slate. If you guys can't tell, we have Bills, Dolphins. I have 2 picks again coming from you guys in this game, or coming to you guys, I should say, in this game. Dolphins, Bills. Our first pick, we got Bills on the spread, minus 5.5. And look, guys, this is all about riding the trend. The Buffalo Bills have won each of the last 5 matchups against the Miami Dolphins, and they've covered this minus 5.5 spread in 4 of their last meetings against the Miami Dolphins. I don't know what it is, but Buffalo and Sean McDermott, they just own Miami. They know how to beat them. They know how to take care of them. Besides one game that Buffalo won by like a field goal, the rest of these games have all been really, really, really big wins. I mean, just look at outlier. These are each of the last 3 matchups. That includes the one time they played this year in both meetings last year. The Bills cashed this line of minus 5.5 in all of their each of their last 3 meetings versus Miami. They played obviously early this year in the game where Tua got hurt. The Bills crushed them there, 31-10. Last year, a little bit closer, but still a nice win for Buffalo, 21-14. And obviously, their earlier meeting in the season, which was also in Buffalo, 48-20. Also, keep in mind the Dolphins are that trend where they're a warm weather team traveling to a cold weather area. They do struggle when they play at Buffalo. Again, last year when they played in Buffalo, 48-20 win for the Bills. The insights provided by Outlier, the Dolphins are 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 games versus top 10 scoring defenses. And yeah, just overall, this is not a good matchup. Miami, I think everybody, I called it last week. I had the Cardinals plus 4.5. That was obviously a really close game. But Miami, kind of like the Dallas Cowboys in some ways, where Micah Parsons coming back helps the Cowboys, and yes, Tua coming back helps the Dolphins. This Dolphins team has so many problems beyond just Tua. Like, Tua was there for those first 2 games. They barely survived Jacksonville. Now we have, obviously 8-9 weeks of data to show the Jaguars are not a very good team this year. They struggle. They probably should have lost that game if the Jaguars didn't choke it. And then you also go ahead and look at the Bills game, which Tua was in it till the fourth quarter. They were getting absolutely stomped in that game. And then Tua starts last week versus the Cardinals. They lose that game as well. So we've had now 3 Tua starts this season. The Dolphins are 1-2 in those games, and they really haven't been that impressive. Are they better with Tua Tagovailoa? Absolutely. Do they have a better chance of winning this game with Tua? Absolutely. Way better than if they had Tyler Huntley or Skylar Thompson. That's a given. But I think a lot of people and a lot of Dolphins fans in particular thought that Tua's return would just kind of set everything right and put the Dolphins back on track. And I think that the track was already off, or they were off track before Tua even got hurt. This team was already a bit of a mess before the injury, and then the injury obviously inflated those problems. But now that Tua's back, are they better? Yes, but I still think this team has some fundamental issues. Their offense will be better, no doubt about it, but their offensive line, I don't necessarily trust it. And their defense, although some of the numbers, like the tied for 15th in scoring, top 5 passing defense, all that stuff, when you look at the DVOA ranks, they're actually not that good. There's also a little bit of like who has Miami played when it comes to like some of their defensive numbers, right? They played the Patriots. They played the Titans. They played the Colts. They played the Jaguars. The Seahawks offense, obviously had a pretty decent game against them there. Miami's also covered this plus 5.5 line in just 3 games so far this year. They're actually a horrible 14% hit rate against the spread overall this season, just 1-7 against the spread this year for Miami. The Bills have a top 5 scoring offense and a top 6 scoring defense in the NFL right now. They've been on a really great run. 63% hit rate on this minus 5.5 line overall this year. 63% hit rate on the spread this year. Buffalo's a juggernaut. They have a great history versus Miami. I just don't see how the Dolphins go ahead and hang with them here. Give me the Bills minus 5.5 at home. And piggybacking off of that, I'm going Bills team total. Again, that key line over 26.5 points. That's minus 135 on DraftKings. Also available BetMGM for minus 155. Now, unlike some of the other team total over props where you saw the data wasn't great, the data for Buffalo is actually pretty solid. They've cashed this over of 26.5 team total points in 63% of their games this year. That's 5 out of 8 games this year that cashed the over. They're averaging 28.75 points per game this year. That is the 5th best scoring mark in the NFL right now. And again, the recent data versus Miami is really, really solid. 2 of their last 3 meetings with the Dolphins, they've cashed the over. Obviously, the earlier game they played this year, 31 points. And the last time they played in Buffalo was last season. Buffalo scored 48 points in that game. Like I said, I just think this is a really good spot for Buffalo. Not a great spot for Miami. Just, this is not a team that travels into cold weather very well at all. This is a Bills team that has their number. Sean McDermott just loves to torture Mike McDaniel and this Dolphins team. So give me the Bills minus 5.5 from the spread and the team total here over 26.5 points. All right, guys, I have 3 picks left in our single bet segment for this week. Our next game up, we're finally moving on into the 4 o'clock slate. We got Bears Cardinals here. Give me the Bears +1. The Cardinals obviously coming off a really nice win against the Dolphins last week. A close win, but a win nonetheless. The Cardinals have been a really weird team this year. They're very zigzaggy. One week you think you got to read on them. The next week they kind of shit their pants. They beat the 49ers and then they get blown up by the Packers. They beat the Actually, they've had on a pretty good run here. They beat the Chargers and they beat the Dolphins. Like I said, a hard team to really get a read on. They got blown up by the Commanders and then they beat the Niners and, they crushed the Rams and lose the Lions. They played the Bills tight. A weird team to say the least, but as a favorite, they haven't covered much this year. This Cardinals at this -1 line, just a 25% hit rate so far this year. Overall, the Cardinals have a 63% hit rate against the spread on their normal overall spread numbers, but on this particular line of -1, it's a 25% hit rate this year. So when Arizona's winning, you see besides the Rams game and the other wins they have, they're really narrow wins. 1-point win over Miami, 2-point win over the Chargers, 1-point win against the 49ers. But honestly, I think the Bears are going to go ahead and win this game. We're taking the spread here just because of the value. The money line for Chicago right now is like +105. The spread here, if you get it on ESPN Bet, is +100. I just find like there's more value on the spread in the weird event that somehow the Cardinals can win a close game. And again, they've done it a few times this year. I'd feel a little bit more comfortable taking the Bears at +1 than taking it on the money line. For that value, which is basically the same, you might as well just take the spread and take the point. Chicago coming off a brutal loss last week to the Commanders in a game where I thought Chicago should have absolutely won. A horrible mistake at the end of the game cost them what would have been their most impressive win of the season by far. But I think that just gives them extra motivation coming into this one. I think the Bears are a better team than the Cardinals. Like I said, the Cardinals have been a nice team. They've had a couple impressive wins on their resume and some good, even the games they've lost, like Detroit and the Bills, they played those teams pretty tough. I just think this is a really bad matchup for Arizona. The Bears defense is the 4th scoring defense in the NFL right now, 17 points per game. 11th against the pass, 14th against the rush. They have a really solid pass rush, and they are top 5 in turnovers forced. And on the flip side, the Cardinals, 24th scoring defense in the NFL. They're 26th against the pass, an abysmal 26th against the run as well. And they don't have much of a pass rush either. 27th in sacks, 28th in QB hits, 30th in QB hurries. That's kind of the way the Bears offense has been struggling this year, is their offensive line has not been great, but the Cardinals do not have the defense to take advantage of those weaknesses. The Bears' offense is getting better and better each and every week, and I do think the Chicago is the better team with a little extra motivation coming off that abysmal loss to the Commanders, again, in a horrible fashion, an absolute soul-crushing fashion. I think Chicago comes into this game ready to roll. They kind of need these this week, and then next week versus the Patriots are their last two sort of quote-unquote easy games before an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. Chicago has the toughest schedule in the NFL remaining this season. So a game like this, they absolutely have to win if they want to go ahead and make the playoffs. And like I said, I think the Bears do match up well overall in this game. The last time these two teams played last year, I'm not really going to even look at that data because that's totally different. Totally different teams, but I mean, in that matchup back on Christmas Eve last year, the Bears did win by 11 in that game. But again, that was Justin Fields versus, I think Kyler was there. But I can't really take anything away from that one. Overall, though, this year, the Bears, they've been on a decent run. Again, they've had a little bit of a cupcake schedule here, but I do think that you've seen them get better and better each and every week. This Cardinals team, they won a couple games in a row, some nice wins, but I do trust Chicago here a little bit more, in particular because of that defense. All right, guys, 2 picks left. Our next pick is coming from what I think is the game of the weekend. We got Lions-Packers, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Lions here at -3. Admittedly, if Jordan Love were healthy in this game, I might lean more towards the Packers here with the home field advantage. Obviously, these NFC North rivalry games, they're very much a coin toss. And these are both really solid teams, and the Packers have a couple nice wins in their resume of late. But Jordan Love got banged up last week in that win versus Jacksonville. He's going to probably play, but he's not 100%. He's had a couple of big injuries now this year. I just don't trust the Packers in this matchup, even with the home field advantage. And this is coming from somebody who owns the Green Bay Packers. I am a minority owner of the Green Bay Packers. I own a whopping 2 shares. But Detroit, it's really hard to go ahead and fade them right now. They have been an absolute wagon. They're covering this line of -3 in 71% of their games this year, an 86% hit rate overall against the spread this year. This team has been absolutely crushing this line. The only time this year that Detroit has failed to cover the spread was in Week 2 versus Tampa Bay. They were a 7.5-point favorite, and they actually ended up losing that game. The Lions have the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL versus the Packers defense that is solid, but I don't know. They 19th in passing. The Lions obviously are a top 11 passing offense in the NFL. On the flip side, Green Bay, they make some mistakes here and there. Apologies for that little freeze frame there on the camera. But the Lions, like I said, overall, I think they're just the better. Even with Jordan Love, I think the Lions are the better team. But given the Jordan Love injury and everything else with Green Bay, I'm going to go ahead and lean with the Lions here. I think they're the best team in the NFL right now, honestly. I know Kansas City exists, and they're obviously really good. But Detroit, they got everything, man. Defense. If they trade for a pass rusher to replace Aiden Hutchinson, they will be, I think, the Super Bowl favorite, in my opinion. So give me the Lions here, -3, which actually, depending on where you get it, is plus money, plus 104 on DraftKings. Really good numbers there. In our 13th and final single bet or straight bet pick in this weekend slate, we're going with the Seahawks-Ram game. Seahawks plus 1.5. This game is just such a coin toss to me. I'd rather take the Seahawks with the points than take the Rams -1.5. Yes, very nice Thursday Night Football win against the Vikings. A very big statement win for the Rams there. And obviously with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back, there's no doubt this offense is lethal. That being said, their defense is still not that good. I don't think the Vikings are the team to necessarily exploit it. Seattle, especially if DK Metcalf comes back, absolutely could. The over's not a bad play here either. I see this game being a very big shootout, and in that scenario, I think Seattle could possibly string something together here. Seattle's defense has been very inconsistent, but they do have a defensive-minded head coach, a really solid head coach coming over, obviously, from the Ravens. He was the Ravens defensive coordinator. Now he's taking over as the Seahawks head coach. I think, if anything, it's more likely that Seattle can fix their defensive issues than the Rams will. I just think this game's going to be really close. I think it's going to be a really big battle, a shootout for sure. The last time these two teams played, that's kind of how it shook out. Now, obviously, it was a lower scoring game, but it was a 1-point game. The Rams won 17-16 versus Seattle last time they played in November of last year. The Rams also blew them out in another game, but the Seahawks were a much different team last year than they are this year. I see this game being very close. I see this game coming down to maybe a field goal or so. It's a coin toss game, but I'm going to go ahead and lean Seattle here. I just have a weird feeling about Seattle possibly coming out and winning this game. All right, guys, those are all 13 of my straight picks in this game, in this week's slate, I should say. Obviously, there are a couple games I'm staying away from. Patriots, Titans, don't want to touch it. The Monday Night Football game, Chiefs, Buccaneers. Have you seen the slates lately? That we've watched the last couple weeks' videos. We have absolutely sucked on Monday Night Football, so that's not exactly something that I particularly want to touch. So we're going to go ahead and avoid that altogether, the Monday Night Football game. And then also, Sunday Night Football I don't do because we do the Sunday Night Football picks video separate from that. So those are all my picks for the Week 9 NFL slate. And now, guys, it's time to move on to the parlay and teaser portion of today's video. And starting off, guys, our first parlay in this, we're going with a very simple, a nice little money line parlay. It's a 3-leg parlay plus 166 odds. We're going with the 3 teams that I think are absolute winners in this week's slate. We got Bengals minus 325, we got Commanders minus 205, and we got the Buffalo Bills at minus 270. Again, no spreads, no nothing, just a simple parlay here. Again, it's a 3-leg parlay plus 166 odds. Next up, guys, we have a 5-leg parlay with a couple of alternate totals here for this week. It's kind of what we hit on last week. We had some nice alternate lines, some alternate totals here. The 5-leg parlay plus 522 odds here. We're going with the alternate total in the Dolphins-Bills games over 44. The over in the Raiders-Bengals game, 39.5. These are all total alternates, by the way, guys. We have the Cowboys-Falcons over 46.5. The Patriots-Titans under 43. And the Jaguars-Eagles over 38.5. So it's a 5-leg parlay, all alternate totals, and it goes out to a plus 522 odd parlay. Pretty good value there. And then our third parlay from this week's slate, guys, we have our big shot parlay, 5-leg parlay. We got this at plus 1131 odds. It's only 5 legs, not too bad, but it's our big shot parlay. A couple money lines and a couple spreads here. We got Falcons money line here. We got Bears money line. We got Lions straight up spread at minus 2.5. We got Eagles money line, and then we have the Bills alternate spread at minus 3. To me, all really solid bets are really, you're just basically asking these teams to win. Yeah, there's a couple spreads, but those are 2 teams where if they win, they should win by at least 3 points in those matchups here. It's plus 1131. Pretty good value there. All right, guys, now moving on to the teaser portion of this week's video. Our first teaser is our must-win teaser. Guys, if you haven't watched the Oracle yet, what we do each and every week here on the video series is our must-win teaser, and it's very simple. It's a giveaway contest. All you have to do is comment must-win down below, and if the teaser hits, one lucky commenter will be selected to win a free $20 Amazon gift card. We didn't cash the must-win tease last week, but we have cashed it overall the majority of the season, so really good numbers there. So make sure to go ahead and comment must-win. And again, if the teaser hits, one lucky commenter will be selected to win a free $20 Amazon gift card. And our must-win teaser this week is a 3-leg teaser. It's a 7-point tease plus 130 odds on DraftKings. We've got the Eagles, who were taken from minus 7.5 down to minus half. All they have to do is win the game, and I think they should go ahead and win here. We have the Bears, who are plus 1.5. They're now plus 8.5. I think the Bears win outright, so now we're taking them 8.5. I don't think if they lose this game, they lose by more than a touchdown. And then some insurance on the Commanders, who are minus 4. We now get that plus 3. So in the weird event that they do lose this game, we are covered to at least a field goal, and I don't see New York really blowing this team out. So that's our must-win teaser. Again, comment must-win down below for a chance to win. Next up, guys, we have our total tease, a 3-leg teaser plus 160 odds. It's a 6-point tease here. We're just taking a couple totals. A couple that you saw in that parlay earlier. We're basically doing the same thing here. We're taking about a touchdown off and seeing how we do there. So we have the Raiders-Bengals over at 40.5, which the original line is 46.5. The Cowboys-Falcons over 51.5, now teased down to 45.5. And the Lions-Packers over 48.5, now teased down to 42.5. Again, it's 3-leg teaser, 6-point tease, plus 160 odds. We're just basically knocking 6 points off of each of those totals, which I think is a pretty good value. And then wrapping things up, guys, our third teaser in this week's slate, we have our big tease. It's a 5-leg teaser, 7-point tease, plus 320 odds. We're just taking a bunch of the spreads. Again, it's some repetitiveness, which obviously is sometimes dangerous with some of these teasers, but they're lines that I really like, and we're going to getting extra value here. Again, Commanders minus 4, we get this at plus 3 now. The Bengals now even. All they have to do is win. We're getting the Falcons at plus 4. They can go ahead and lose now, but just keep it a little closer. We have the Bears again at plus 8.5, which I love that line. They're not going to lose by more than a touchdown, I don't think. And we're also getting the Rams here at plus 6. So they were a minus 1 point favorite. Now it's plus 6. We keep them relatively close here. I think if the Rams do lose, it will be a relatively close game here. Again, 5-leg teaser, plus 320 odds, 7-point tease, good value there. And guys, that will do it for this week's video. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, guys, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Guys, I'll be back next week with another episode of the NFL Oracle. But until then, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy NFL Week 9. Let's go win some motherfucking money. Try to keep it PG, but fuck that. Let's go win some motherfucking money. Hope you're all winners. Enjoy Week 9.